All right, well, good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Walks in Wall Street. Today is November 13th, 2023, and we are sitting right here outside of the GM building. Now, right in front of you, you see the beautiful Plaza Hotel. If I point the camera a little bit further up here, you can see not only the Plaza Hotel, but you can see the skinniest residential apartment building in the entire world, which is the Steinway Tower. Also, to our right, we have the flagship Apple Store, which is pretty cool. So starting off the stream in a little bit of a different location. Now, it wasn't too busy of a day on Wall Street. Pretty much no volatility. The indices pretty much opened and closed exactly where they started. The S&P 500 was down about 3 points. So pretty much nothing. But that's to be expected because tomorrow is the big day. Yeah, it is CPI day. So tomorrow, Tuesday, November 14th, the Bureau of Labor Statistics will be releasing the Consumer Price Index for October. And I think the market is really waiting for these results because, as we've been talking about, the CPI report is one of the main things that the Federal Reserve looks at as a leading sort of economic indicator and coincident economic indicator as they sort of guess and check to see if their monetary policy is working to get back and achieve their dual mandate, which is price stability and maximum employment. Now, we know if we look all the way back, well, let's just go back to September for now. September CPI came in at about 3.7%. Now, we are in about 3 months of, I would say, a counter-trend rally as it relates to inflation, but well off the highs of about 9.1% that we saw in 2022. But economists are forecasting about a 3.3% year-over-year increase in CPI. So that would be a significant reduction on a month-over-month basis as well. And one of the things that I think we should be looking out for, particularly that I think is going to help bring that headline number down, is commodities prices. Number one being crude oil. Let's take a look at where crude oil closed today. If you look at the futures contract for crude, ticker symbol CL, we're trading it at about $78 a barrel, under $80 a barrel yet again. So, look, if you look at the closed prices from October 1st to October 31st, almost every single day of the month in October, crude oil prices were lower. If you pull up TradingView, and if you go to October 1st, starting October 1st, crude oil was at $90 a barrel. And if you go all the way to November 1st, they receded all the way to $80. So about a $10 price reduction, which I think is really going to help bring down that headline number. But as we look to core CPI, which excludes volatile food and energy, the number one thing that's been very, I would say, pesky and sort of being very much ingrained into our economy is shelter costs. Now, if you type exclamation point CPI in the chat, once again, exclamation point CPI. Maybe I'll do that since I'm near my computer now. The Nightbot is going to drop a link to the Bureau of Labor Statistics website. And I think this is a really good resource for everybody to look at tomorrow because not only does it give you the press release, right, the news release, but it gives you a really nice infographic of every single category that makes up CPI. And it goes back on a 12-month percentage change basis. So you'll see all items, you'll see food at home, energy, electricity, apparel, medical care and commodities, and shelter costs. Now, what's an interesting comparison here, if you select all items, you'll notice that in June of 2022, that's when inflation peaked in the United States, right at around 9.1%. But if you also overlay a chart of shelter costs, you'll notice that shelter is lagging significantly. Okay, we've now had about 6 consecutive months of shelter cost declines in the United States, but sort of look at the comparison here. because you had the headline number of CPI or inflation top in June of 2022, but shelter didn't top out until March of 2023. That's a little bit over a year later. And this makes sense, right? Because if you read the free newsletter that we put out, the Behind the Street newsletter, I send it out and I email it to everybody every other Thursday after the market closes. We wrote a piece on this, right? And the piece was called Order of Liquidity, or In Order of Liquidity. And when the Federal Reserve starts to adjust monetary policy, particularly raising interest rates, the first assets to adjust are the assets that are very, very high in liquidity, right? So equities, stocks, things like that. But for real estate, particularly residential and commercial, these are illiquid assets, right, relative to equities. So it takes a little bit longer for the full effect of interest rate hikes to start to impact valuations. And we're just starting to see that. So shelter topped in March of 2023. And we've had 6 consecutive months of declines for shelter costs, coming in at September, which was last month, at 7.2. So if I had to make a prediction for tomorrow, I think we're going to see energy prices come down. I think you're going to see gasoline of all types come down. I mean, natural gas is already, absolutely fallen off a cliff. But the number one thing that we should be turning our attention to is shelter. Okay, not only because it is extremely lagging, so shelter is a major lag effect, but it makes up about 40% of the entire number, right? So as we think about the Federal Reserve's dual mandate, number one is price stability, and number two is full employment. Well, if you want to create price stability and bring inflation back down to the 2% target, guess what? Shelter has to come down in order to achieve that goal. I think it will. Again, it just takes a little bit longer for valuations of real estate to take a little bit of a hit, okay? So, guys, let's do this. As a quick reminder, I did send out the newsletter to everybody on Thursday, so last Thursday. If you haven't gotten it, please check your email if you haven't gotten it yet and you'd like to subscribe to our free financial newsletter. You could scan the QR code on your screen right here, or type !news, NEWS, in the chat, and the Nightbot will drop the link to our Substack. The next newsletter will be sent out next Thursday. I think there's a lot of good value in there for all of our subscribers. So I'm going to go ahead and close up the laptop. I'll say hello to everybody in the chat, and then we will be heading all the way down to 34th Street, Herald Square, tonight on the live stream. All right, give me a minute and we will get started. Okay, let me go ahead and clip this microphone on, and we will kick this off. Welcome everybody to New York City. It is a beautiful day. We have the Apple Store right here on 5th Avenue, but check out this building. This is the Sherry Netherland. So we talk a lot about the financial markets on this live stream. We talk a lot about the stock market, and the Sherry Netherland is very iconic to me because of Jesse Livermore. I know we have a lot of new people here. I tell this story a lot, but we do have a lot of new viewers. So the Sherry Netherland is where Jesse Livermore used to go in the bar at the Sherry Netherland after he would trade at the bucket shops down on Wall Street. And that was his go-to spot. So if you've ever read the book Reminiscences of a Stock Operator, which is one of my personal favorite trading and investing books of all time, that is based upon the life of Jesse Livermore. And he used to have a drink in the bar right there at the Sherry Netherland. Kind of cool how we get to sort of relive a little bit of Wall Street history. I see Stephen Bates here, Gary Carpenter, Emmanuel, Ali Star, RB, Diana, good to see you. Welcome. I see Ha, good to see you. Richard Vogel, Moonlight. Kimberly, David is here. Long Island Duck says, Tom, I paid $3.29 a gallon today. That's very good. And you know, I said this a couple streams ago, but I'm actually very optimistic for consumers' sake going into the holiday season, right? It's going to be, I mean, right now, literally, is the busiest sort of travel time of the year. It's kind of crazy to think about, but this is the last week we have before Thanksgiving. Now, if you're in the sales world, like I am, mid next week is going to be totally dead until the end of the year, right? For large purchases and things like that. A lot of people take off pretty much for the holiday season. You have Thanksgiving, you have Hanukkah, Christmas. It's, you know, it's over. But, you know, with crude oil prices coming down significantly, trading well below $80 a barrel, as everybody is traveling across the country, flying in airplanes, driving in cars, gas prices are now going to be affordable and not astronomical and horrible. So this is some good news, which I'm happy about. Susanna Q4, what's up? Wendy England says we are down to $6.32 a gallon. Whoa, that doesn't sound right. $6.32 a liter or a gallon, do you mean? Maybe you're in Canada, I don't know. That's crazy. Wow, almost $7 for a gallon of gas. I don't know how people operate like that. Haas says, if you're a landlord, would you want someone to give you $8,000 per month for rent of a luxury house, and they pay $16,000 total to move in? I don't really know what that means. 456 is the problem is that this means a recession is here. Potentially, yeah. You know, that's actually a really good point. Because, and I think I actually wrote about this in the newsletter. I put a little section about this, that we can use commodities prices in and of themselves as leading economic indicators, right? So if you think about crude oil, right, why would crude oil prices be collapsing? Well, what does that mean about the economic outlook of some of the largest economies in the world, right? Like China. I mean, some of the data we're getting out of China, I don't know if it's, we could take that at face value, but arguably, China right now is going through one of the worst real estate crises since the 2008 financial crisis. So that's a good point. You know, sometimes we could use commodities prices as leading economic indicators in and of themselves. That's actually a really good point. Prince Charming is here. Good to see you. Welcome. Office Girl says we're down to $1.27 a liter here in Canada, which has been a lot better than it has been, which is good. Dale says, Tom, it's $2.78 a gallon here in Grand Prairie, Texas. Very good. Usually the coasts, particularly California, usually has the highest gas prices. I mean, some of the viewers that we have here from LA, I remember, you know, when crude oil was trading at like $130 a barrel, they were saying at the gas pump, it was almost $5.50, $5.60 a gallon of gas, which is insane to think that that was a reality here in America. Kimberly says 313 here in Tucson, Arizona. That's not too bad for AZ, right? Not too bad. Hey, Jimmy Chung says, what's the best way to spend New Year's Eve in New York City? I don't know. I think there's a lot of ways to do it. I think there's a lot of fun and interesting things to do. This is the Plaza Hotel right here. But it just really depends on your personality, right? Are you a big party person? Do you kind of like it more quiet? I mean, if you ask some people, they want to be right in the thick of it all when they're dropping the ball in Times Square. Not personally something I would want to do, but a lot of people do like to do it. I don't know. I'd rather, you know, walk around on the outskirts of it. I think it's a little bit more fun. When you're slammed into Times Square like sardines, it's not as fun. You know, check out some of the beautiful crown moldings here on the inside of the Plaza Hotel. You see these amazing chandeliers. I think I've taken you guys in here a couple times. CPQ Trainer says, Tom, did you hear that Tesla can sue new Cybertruck owners $50K if they sell before the year is up? I did not know that. Is that true? That seems a little bit strange. I did not know that. B Cruise says it's $5.85 in LA now. Yikes. Before I forget, everybody, tomorrow, aside from inflation data being reported, we are also going to hear from Home Depot. And Home Depot is another stock that we can kind of use to gauge the, I guess, consumer spending appetite for the average US consumer, right? Now, one of the key metrics, and we'll talk about this tomorrow night, we're going to do a deep dive into their earnings report. And we also have some breaking news from their co-CEO and founder, or their co-founder of Home Depot. He was delving into politics a little bit. But I usually like to look at the average ticket sales. So average receipt size, essentially. So when the average person goes to Home Depot, how much are they spending? Now, this can be interpreted in a couple of ways, and oftentimes I think it gets misinterpreted. Because as over the past couple quarters, average receipt size, right, so the average spend a customer makes, has been going up. But that's not necessarily a good thing, right? It doesn't necessarily mean customers are getting more product. It just means the current products that they get are more expensive, which is definitely a dilemma. And I could see how that can skew some consumer spending data as well. You know, if you've ever, watched some commentary on CNBC. Hold on, let me get you a nice shot of Billionaires Row here with the clouds. Looks very Batman-esque. But if you've ever seen any of these commentators on CNBC talking about some of the consumer spending data, which we're actually going to get this week, they're like, hey, consumers are spending more, and that means the consumer is healthy. Not all the time we can interpret it like that. With inflationary pressures, unfortunately, people are just spending more and they're actually getting less. So it's not like they have an appetite to consume more, to buy additional products and services for their family, for their business. It's almost a requirement to pay more for the bare minimum that you need, which is something we've been seeing over not only the couple of quarters, over the past couple of years, I think. I don't know, I guess anecdotally, would you say that's what you're seeing on the ground floor when you go out shopping? When you go to the Home Depot, when you're working on your projects? Are you seeing things more expensive? This is speaking of Tesla, this is a really nice Tesla Model Y right here. Hey, Padilla says, hey Tom, about to hit the gym, but I need to know, did you ever get your coat? I didn't get it today. Oh, look at that. That was the car we saw 2 days ago. Now, that's not called a Model T. What was that car called? A Model B or something like that? But no, you know what? I was looking at the weather outlook or the forecast, and it's going to be like 65 degrees on Thursday, which is going to feel unbelievable. But I will be buying the jacket probably this weekend. I got absolutely crushed with work today. Which makes sense because everybody's trying to get business done before the holidays, Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, and Christmas. The LT Prons, as they say, Teslas could be $25,000 eventually. I think so, and I hope so. I think so, and I hope so. If you really want to make sure that EVs are mainstream, you're really going to need to reduce the prices, and that's what Elon is doing. Dale says that was a Model A. The other one was a Hudson Great 8. I remember that, Dale. You were telling me. Thank you for that. Let me catch up on some of the chats. Hey, Hoss Manning. Good to see you, sir. Always a pleasure to have you here. Have you been to Momofuku lately? We almost ran into each other over the summer. Let's walk down 58th Street a little bit so you can see the backside of the Steinway Tower. RB says people are not really making more money, but expectation of a possible change in... Hold on, the chat's moving. So you think a potential change in the political environment is fueling consumer optimism? I don't know. Maybe you're right. It's possible. But for me, I try to just block out the politics of it all. But I don't know if a lot of people think the way I do. I believe that regardless of who the president is, I think on the vast majority of Americans, it has very sort of immaterial impacts on their day-to-day operations, right? I think a lot of people say, oh, you know what? President Joe Biden is the reason why I'm not making X amount of money. President Trump is the reason why my life is not good. I mean, the president is one guy, so I don't know. I don't think a political class. I think politicians take too much punishment when the economy is bad, and they take way too much credit when it's good, in my opinion. Particularly in terms of stock market performance. I think they take way too much credit when the market is good, right? When the market is going up. But I also think they take too much punishment when the market is going down. The president has virtually nothing to do, in my opinion, right? This is opinionated. I think the president has very little to do with stock market prices. It mainly has to do with liquidity and monetary policy, right? So if you're the president of the United States during a massive quantitative easing cycle where the Federal Reserve is holding interest rates near zero and printing a bunch of money, well, there's a high probability that businesses are going to borrow money to grow their business, earnings are going to go up, wages are going to go up, and the economy is going to do relatively well. But if you have an environment where you're going through an extreme tightening cycle, I mean, you could be the best president on earth and the market's probably going to have a rough patch. This is a pretty cool shot of Central Park Tower right here. And to the right, you have 220 Central Park South. So this is an awesome shot of pretty much every single building on Billionaires Row. This one is 157. And we never really get to see it from this angle, too. And this one is the Steinway Tower. Hey, MBA Elias, what's up? Good to see you. Welcome to 58th Street. This is the backside of the JW Marriott Essex House 2. Cody is here. What's up? Office Girl says it depends sometimes. Politics can be disastrous for people. Canada is a prime example of poor policy. Yeah, I mean, if it's extremely egregious, I get it. But I think for most young people in the United States, right? I get in some other countries if you're living under extreme, communist regime or something like that, then yeah. But I think the capitalistic system we have in the U.S. Generally, for young, educated individuals, it's kind of almost no impact that the president has on your day-to-day, usually. All right, now this is looking towards Central Park South. This is looking uptown. Yeah, TK Porsche's genius architecture, the Steinway Tower. Hey, Jonathan, this is Tom. Did you get enough credit to cover your new coat? I did, but I have to block out time to get it. I was busy today. I was running all around. I was downtown in the financial district. I was uptown on the Upper East Side, and then tomorrow I got to go to Brooklyn again. So we'll see. Traveling D is here. What's up? NAV 407. Good to see you. And looking down here is Carnegie Hall. And you can see all the way into Times Square. But check this one out. This is Alwyn Court. I always showcase this on the stream. I think it looks great. You have the old New York, and then in the background you have the new New York, if you will. And the good news is that it's pretty much going to warm up here on out throughout the city. Thursday, it's going to be about 65 degrees, which is going to feel like a 90-degree day, which I'm looking forward to. So, now, Home Depot is going to report earnings tomorrow, ticker symbol HD. And the co-founder of Home Depot came out and made a statement today, sort of warning and forecasting about, the potential severe negative ramifications for the U.S. economy and the United States in general. And he is essentially, I think his statement was something along the lines of, he's calling on all fellow Republicans, Democrats, and all Americans to vote in the upcoming 2024 election for President Donald Trump, or former President Donald Trump. Now, we usually, hold on, we'll wait till these, looks like someone important is coming through. Hope there's no trouble going on in Times Square. That's where we're headed. Oh yeah, so the co-founder of Home Depot sort of came out and made that statement. Not really, I wouldn't want to say too doom and gloom, but his outlook on the future of the United States isn't too bright. Now, I disagree with him and I agree with him. Where I agree with him is the following. As we're looking up at 157, which this shot looks amazing here. I do agree that some more of the more radical, extreme left-wing narratives that are being pushed, particularly in colleges and universities, there's I would say, a very big populist movement amongst young people favoring socialism. And I think that's very ill-founded, but I think there's numerous reasons for that. And I think it's because crony capitalism, or I would say capitalism is taking the fall, in my opinion, for crony capitalism. So, Gen Zs and even younger millennials will look at the economic climate and say, hey, the average single-family home right now is way out of reach for me, right? When my parents were buying homes, it was, maybe 2x their incomes. Now it's, 6, 7x. So it seems like home ownership is out of reach. It seems like the American dream is out of reach. It seems like all these asset prices are just going so high that we just really can't keep up. And they're blaming sort of corporate greed and capitalism for that. But the system that we've had since the lows of the depths of the financial crisis has sort of been a morphed system, not of pure play laissez-faire capitalism, but sort of a corporate socialist structure, right? Where you have all of these corporations across the United States that essentially gets to play the game for free. And what I mean by that is this. Since 2008, the Federal Reserve has left interest rates artificially suppressed pretty much near zero, allowing big corporate entities, wealthy individuals, right, the top, call it top 10%, to essentially take on unlimited amounts of money and unlimited amounts of risk with pretty much no consequence, right? And if you look at who over the past decade has had most of the access to capital, it really hasn't been the lower class. It really hasn't been the middle class. It's been the people at the top, right? So yes, have corporations have been making windfall profits since 2009 until now. Yeah, have a lot of these, the emergence of big tech and SaaS, was that sort of all subsidized by artificially suppressed interest rates? Yeah, yes, in a way, right? I think a lot of these startups would never really have come to be if it weren't for cheap money. And we're already starting to see a lot of these unprofitable startups file for bankruptcy. I think the biggest example of that being WeWork, right? WeWork is essentially a poster child for ZERP. That's quite literally the only reason why the company was able to operate for as long as it did, is because of cheap and free money. So I think it's just, to go back to my point about, it's unfortunate that it seems as if capitalism is taking the fall for this essentially corporate socialist system. So on one hand, I agree with the co-founder of Home Depot, but I think I disagree with him in that aspect, because his company has benefited from that for quite some time. All right, we are coming up on Barclays, which used to be Lehman Brothers before they collapsed and went bankrupt during the financial crisis. You know what I found out? I just realized there was a Shake Shack here. It's always been here, but I never realized it until a couple of days ago. Hey, the LT Prods is the bailout with lack of accountability in 2008. It was corporate socialism. I agree. Yeah, that was another thing, right? Like, why bail out the investment banks? If you go out of business, you should be able to lose money. I agree with that. NBA Elias says most U.S. politicians wouldn't know what socialism is if Karl Marx hit him in the face. Corporation earnings billions of dollars is not socialism. No, I definitely agree with that. I just think that the Federal Reserve is essentially juiced the game a little bit. And I think I think politicians will say, hey, look, corporations are making so much money, we need to implement socialist policies. But no, essentially, if you just had free markets, setting prices, and essentially the free market picking winners and losers instead of, central banks, I think things would run a little bit better. But then again, that's the whole end the Fed movement, which is not even worth entertaining because it's not going to happen, right? I tend to be a realist, so in general, do I agree with sort of the whole end the Fed movement? I do, but I don't really entertain it because I know it's never going to happen. That's sort of the one way I look at it, I guess. I don't know. It's interesting. However, I still think the United States of America is by far the number one place in the world for class mobility, which essentially means, if you started with nothing, this is by far the easiest place in the world to start with nothing and then move up the social ladder from lower class to middle class to upper class, wealthy and the like. It's not even a debate. And this is sort of why I kind of like to bring it back to our original conversation, where I say, look, a lot of people have a lot of negative things to say about the US, and I get that, but there's a famous quote that says it's the least worst system out there, right? It's not perfect. No system is perfect, but it's the least worst out there. And if you know how to play the game, and invest for the long term over long durations, over long periods, you can share in that growth of the American economy. The problem is we're seeing too much of a percentage of income going towards, the cost of living. So there's nothing left over to invest, right? There's nothing left over to, buy property. That's sort of the argument that is being made, which I definitely sympathize with 100%. Hey, Tom Barry's here. What's up? Good to see you. Jacob O'Brien's government involvement is what always stifles a true and just capitalistic system. Big players take big gambles and should lose when wrong, win big when right, student loans, bank bailouts, etc. I agree with that. I definitely agree. Yeah, that's when the term sort of moral hazard started to get thrown around. I'm sure everybody, has a very vivid memory of that, right? Back in the 2008 financial crisis, Main Street was saying, well, why should all of these bankers be bailed out, right, with taxpayer dollars? When they took the big risks, they were gambling with everybody else's money. They crashed the global economy, not just the US economy. Why should they get bailed out? And I get it. I totally get it. I think the counter argument to that is it would have been much, much worse, and the recession duration would have been much, much longer had the government and the Federal Reserve have not stepped in, which I do agree. But then what do you have? You just have kicking the can down the road for decades, right? And now that sort of leads us to the situation where we are now. The only thing is nobody knows how far the Fed can kick the can down the road. And I think that's why a lot of pessimistic bears, perma bears or short sellers on the street lost a ton of money over the last decade, right? We've gone on one of the most prosperous and monstrous rallies in stock market history, essentially, since the lows of the financial crisis. The LT prods as retail investors have unprecedented access to the markets today. There was a good opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal the other day that was I think it was actually titled that. That's what it was titled. But the opinion piece was essentially arguing that by having such unprecedented access to the financial markets, it's actually negative for most people. Because most people, right, will sit in front of their computer and play it like a slot machine and move things around and, try to actively trade. And we all know how that turns out, particularly when you have, the euphoric meme stock nonsense and all that. So out of sight for most people, out of mind is better in the investment business. When you're able to, trade stocks on your phone, many people treat it like they're gambling on a sports bet. So in one essence, it's good, right? There's so much direct access, and it's never been easier than before to invest. But most people, unfortunately, sort of abuse that and turn it into like a gambling style casino rather than, investing in great companies, generating fantastic amounts of free cash over the life of the business. They'll just, sit on Robinhood and, trade options when they don't even know how they're priced. It's an interesting dichotomy. I have to find that opinion piece, and I'm going to send it to you, or maybe I'll post it in the newsletter, but it was a really good opinion piece. All right, here's the Christmas tree on top of Radio City Music Hall. Honest as Tom, Wells Fargo is closing some of their locations. I heard that, and I also heard that a lot of banks are quietly doing more and more layoffs, which makes sense, particularly investment banks, and particularly departments such as, IPO, MMA, or M&A, MMA. That's hilarious. I was thinking about MMA because the UFC was at Madison Square Garden the other night. I think that was on Saturday, right, when Dana White was here? Anyway. Look at this. Stunning shot. Now, we also saw this from a lot of the major Wall Street mega banks when they reported earnings a couple weeks ago, right? Now, in 2021, there was windfall profits on Wall Street, particularly at investment banks, right? Because if you think about the big moneymaker for Wall Street investment banks, it's a lot of the fee income, right? So when you've had this massive amount of COVID stimulus, right, artificially suppressing interest rates, the Federal Reserve printing a bunch of money, that spurs tons and tons of business activity, right, in two forms. Number one, a lot of companies go public, right, both via IPO and by SPAC, Special Purpose Acquisition Company, which the majority of those were frauds, but we won't talk about that tonight. Don't want to get sued. But number two, a lot of businesses, when they're making a lot of money and when they have a lot of cash on the balance sheet, what do they look to do? They look for acquisition targets, so the M&A market picks up. And investment banks like Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan Chase, Morgan Stanley, and the like, all of the major bulge bracket banks, Deutsche Bank, they charge a ridiculous amount of money to take companies public, right? You have your equity underwriting fees, you have your M&A fees. So when deal flow is crazy and there's so many deals being done, so many companies coming public, well, guess what? That means more revenue and more fee income for the major investment banks. But we saw right at the start of quantitative tightening, when the Federal Reserve started to raise interest rates, the IPO market, or the initial public offering market, totally froze up. It was the worst year for IPOs on record, right? So when, you ever heard the old saying, it's always funny when you're making money, right? But when money becomes expensive and investors don't have an appetite for risk, less companies become public, thus translating to lower earnings at major investment banks. I wrote a piece on this in the Behind the Street newsletter. So every other Thursday after the market closes, I send out all of our Walks in Wall Street subscribers my free research piece. So I sent it out Thursday. If you didn't get it, you could scan the QR code on your screen and it'll drop the link to our Substack, or you could type !news, NEWS, in the chat, and the Nightbot will drop the link to our Substack. So a lot of the core concepts that we talk about each and every night on the live stream, God forbid you miss a stream, I'll write about it. I'll package it up in a little nice bow and I'll hand it to you guys like a Christmas gift on top of Radio City Music Hall. But for now, we are going to cross the street and check out the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree. Because in a few weeks here, guys, they're going to do the lighting ceremony and it's going to look amazing. I can't believe Thanksgiving is in a little over a week here. So the tourist activity is going to pick up quite materially. If you see, obviously, the sidewalks here, there's not too much pedestrian traffic. So make a mental note of what you're seeing right now. And as we do this live stream here in about 2 weeks, this is going to be a crazy mob scene. You're not even going to be able to probably walk around this neighborhood because it is going to be so packed with tourists. And we're probably going to be buffering because the internet is no good when there's so many people here. So let's check out the ice skating rink real quick, and then we'll head down towards Macy's at Herald Square. Hey, Colton Manning, what's up? This is Tom. I can't wait for the tree lighting ceremony. Are you going to go to that this year, Colton? Yes, no? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Hey, LA007, what's up? Good to see you. Someone says I'm not ready for 2024. It's going to be a crazy year. But you know what? I'll make a prediction. I think this is going to be the best year on record, 2024. I think if you play your cards right and you put in the work and you have a good outlook on life, I think this will probably be your breakout year. At least I think it'll be for me and all of you viewers. I think 2024 is going to provide unprecedented opportunities. It's going to be amazing, and I'm excited about it. Super, super excited. Hey, Cindy Foley is here. What's up? Darren Roberts. This is happy holidays from Australia. Good to see everybody in the land down under. I know. That's I agree with that comment, Niles Thorne. This is Tom. Hopeful for 2024. No more wars. I agree with you. Hopefully we'll get the war machine out of office, and there'll be no more killing, and it'll be back to peace. Let's hope for that. So now we are looking at the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree, and it appears that the wind is actually picking up a little bit. Does PagerDuty have AI? I think the Austin Tennis, who is usually in the chat, I believe he's an account executive there over at PagerDuty. PagerDuty trades under the ticker symbol PD. PD, PagerDuty. They're like a response alerting service. I guess you can say that they compete with the likes of Datadog, ticker symbol DDOG. This is an awesome shot here with all the flags. A few days ago for Veterans Day, every single flag was the American flag, which looked amazing. I think they should have left it like that for at least a week, because that was made for some good photographs over there. All right, let's head down towards the ice skating rink. But if you're all enjoying the live stream so far tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video. And click the subscribe button if you're new. We do these live streams almost every day, starting at 8:30. Now somebody's asking about investing books. I'll give you a few of my favorites. Now if you're a beginner, I think I would start with the following book. You know what, I was gonna say one of them, but I'll say this one. It's called The Little Book of Common Sense Investing by John Bogle, or Jack Bogle. Now, Jack Bogle was the CEO and founder of the Vanguard Group. Unfortunately, he did pass away, I think in 2020. But he's the one who really pioneered index funds on Wall Street, right? Because he was noticing a pretty glaring trend. This is an amazing shot of the tree here. You know, he was noticing a pretty big trend on Wall Street that the only people who were making any money on the street were the mutual fund managers that were making all the money on their fee income, right? So way back in the day, I'm sure most of you remember this, back in the 80s and even in the 90s, if you wanted to purchase a mutual fund, there would be something called load fees, LOAD fees. Sometimes they would charge you 5% on the front end, 5% on the back end, and a 2% annual management fee, right? So if you think about compounding interest being the eighth wonder of the world, well, it works both ways, right? You could also have compounding fee income that could eat into your overall returns for the life of the fund. So, you know, the real reason why fees and commissions are almost pretty much near zero on Wall Street is mainly because of that man. Quite literally because of Jack Bogle, saying, why don't we create a product, right, an index fund, that tracks all 500 stocks in the S&P 500, and investors could just own a piece of America at a very, very low expense ratio. And now I think Fidelity actually came out with an index fund that doesn't have any expense ratio. I actually think it's free. So, you know, Vanguard is responsible for driving down so much fee income on Wall Street. So I would read that book. It's called The Little Book of Common Sense Investing by John Bogle. And then I think once you sort of read that, you can, if you want to actively manage money, you could sort of graduate to other things. But I think for most people, if you're just like a regular retail investor, I think that's really the only book you need. But if you want to trade in individual stocks and try to evaluate companies, then you could graduate onto some interesting books and courses and things like that. All right, this is St. Patrick's Cathedral, which looks great. Look at that. Hey, Dan Zhang, what's up? Good to see you. Hey, Humble, this is Tom. I need advice. I just got a job opportunity for a job on Wall Street today. I'll be selling hedge funds. What are your opinions? What's your opinion on selling insurance versus hedge funds? It just depends on the fund. So essentially you're going to be in like investor relations, right? So you have like an investor relations position at a hedge fund, like raising money for a fund. Yeah, if you think that's something you like, right? It's pretty much a sales job. If you believe in the fund, if you think the fund has a good track record and you think you could learn something there, then I would do it. And then I would network within your firm, depending on what you want to do. Maybe you want to be an analyst right at the hedge fund, where you're doing equity research or something like that. Or maybe you want to be a quantitative. I don't know what the name of the fund is, but I would just ask yourself, where do I see my career in 10 years? And if you think there's substantial growth opportunity there, ooh, that guy almost fell. Someone says, how much is it? I think it's $26, which isn't too bad, honestly. 26 bucks. I think that's a pretty good deal to be able to ice skate right under the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree. If you're thinking about doing it, I'd probably do it before Thanksgiving because, it's going to get crowded. So I'm trying to make a mental picture of how it looks now and compare it to the streams that we have up in the next coming weeks here. So I think it's going to be packed. All right, let's check out Macy's. I think they're already starting to set up some of the windows there. So the very famous windows at 34th Street, Herald Square. Yeah, Chuck Rumford says, isn't it free at Bryant Park? It is. I had no idea it was free at Bryant Park. Now, the reason why I think that is because it's sponsored by Bank of America, right? Isn't it called the Winter Village, sponsored by Bank of America? We'll check it out. We're going to walk past it in about 15 minutes here. So yeah, I think Brian Moynihan's dishing out the cash. I mean, Bank of America makes enough money. Actually, they may be in trouble, but we'll talk about that in another live stream. Look at all the branches they're trimming away to make way for the lights. Oh, Melissa 2087 says, I don't think it's free if you bring your own skates. Got it. Hey, Humble says, thank you, Tom and moderators. Appreciate the advice, and I always enjoy the streams. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Look at that, 270 Park. Hey, Solo says, Tom, what do you make of them trying to decrease real estate agent commissions? So I heard about that. I think there was a big lawsuit involving all of the, what's it called? Major brokerages. Now, from my understanding, the seller is the person who pays the commission, right? And it's a free market, and you know, if I go to someone and I say, hey, I'll sell your house for 5%, you know, they could say, we'll take a walk. They could tell me to take a hike, pound sand, and then I say, okay, I'll sell your house for 2%. And then you say, okay, I agree. And then you shake hands and you agree. That's the way the market is and everything. But what I think the lawsuit was about, I think, and I don't know, I haven't really been following it. I probably should be following it since I'm in the industry. But there was collusion, right? Like an antitrust violation was allegedly going on. Now, I don't know if it was going on. I mean, that's part of the reason why they're doing the case. But I think what was happening, and you guys could, you know, tell me in the comments sort of what you think, is that the allegations are that brokers, right, Keller Williams, you know, all of the major brokers were sort of colluding with each other to fix the price of the commissions above a certain point, right? So for example, if I'm broker ABC, I go to broker, you know, XYZ and say, hey, this is our market, don't do any deals for less than 5%. Right, so that sort of sets the floor, and that's collusion. You're not allowed to do that. It's illegal. It's very, very illegal. So if that was going on, that is extremely unethical. But there's nothing like anybody could do to lower, to say like raise or lower commissions. It's just decided between the seller and the broker, right? Now, do I think there's going to be serious disruption in the real estate business over the next 5 to 10 years? Yes, just like there was in the stock market, right? Think about going to your, you know, a brokerage way back in the day when you used to pick up the phone and call your broker, and they would place the trade for you. I mean, think about how high those commissions were, right? But now they're almost nothing. Right? And in some instances they're free, but they're not free. It's paid for by the payment for order flow. I think the same thing will happen with the real estate business, but the problem with the real estate business is that the deals are so lethargic and complex because there's a lot of lawyers involved, unfortunately, right? If anybody's ever done a real estate transaction, particularly in New York City, it's lawyer city, and they scrutinize everything. It's like, now, does it need to be that way? I have my doubts, but I will say this. Most lawyers are paid by the hour. So, you know, I mean, I think I was telling you guys a story about a deal I was working on, And Jonathan, by the way, thank you so much for your donation. It's very kind. It says use this for whatever, Coat, coffee, pizza, or hot chocolate. Enjoy. Thank you for your very generous $10 donation. I appreciate you very, very much. Very kind. And I appreciate the support. But I think I was telling you guys a story about a deal I was working on. We went into contract with the client for $2.5 million. I was selling an apartment. It was 2.5 all cash. They were ready to close immediately. And during all the diligence and the back and forth, you know, I was kind of staying out of it because the lawyers are supposed to deal with that. Long story short, the sponsor's lawyer and the buyer's attorney were arguing over a light bulb. They're like, no, this, because I guess as we were doing the walkthrough, one of the light bulbs wasn't turning on, right? And since it was a sponsor unit, you know, you have a punch list. For those of you who aren't familiar with, the real estate business, if you're selling new development, you have a punch list. And since it's supposed to be a new product, everything comes brand new. 2-3 weeks went by, and everybody was arguing over, who should change the light bulb. I was like, are you kidding me? And I just went to the store and I spent like $10 and I put in the fucking the light bulb. And all while the attorneys were going back and forth with each other, probably racking up, $1,000 attorney fees for the sponsor and the buyer. Crazy. So I think things like that, nuanced things like that, are sort of what keep real estate transactions from not being like stock trading, where there's just an exchange for settlement, because there's a lot of bureaucracy. There's also a lot of different legal stuff, right? You have to check if there's any illegal dwellings on the property or any illegal expansions. So should it be digitized? I think so, and I think it will, but it's not as simple as trading securities, because properties are a whole other can of worms, I guess. I don't know. I think that was a very long-winded answer, and I'm not even sure if I answered the question, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Hey, Matthew says, hey, Tom, you will be passing by the Sheraton Times Square Hotel. I think we may have passed that already. I think the Sheraton is up by 56th Street and 7th, isn't it? Isn't it like 2 blocks away from Barclays, I believe? I think. All right, let's cross here. I'm just sifting through the comments. I know everything in Miami says it will take 6 years for the appeal to the courts. Oh, for the lawsuit, right? Yeah, I mean, everything in Miami. Like, what is your take on it? I mean, that's how it's been in the real estate business forever. Like, there's no set commission price. When you're pitching a listing, you agree with the seller on what the commission is. I think there was just like some allegations for price collusion, I think. But I don't know. Joseph Hardaway says, Tom, do you have any new house tours? Yes, we have some coming. And we have actually some really very exciting listings coming up, so which I'm excited for. Positive Princess says, how many attorneys does it take to screw in a light bulb? Funny. Well, here's the thing. When I did that and I said, I just typed back in the email, all good, then it was a slew of back and forth about liability and this, was it done properly? We have to have an electrician check it. It's just like, it's just the big bureaucracy of it. It's a machine. At the end of the day, it's a big machine, All right, let's continue down here. The wind is starting to pick up. It's actually getting a little bit colder. Jason Lee says, so you're saying they're all playing the game to squeeze money out of the buyer? No, the seller pays the commission. I don't know if you've ever bought a house before, but the seller pays the commission on the deal. Hey Ramsey, what's up? This is Hey Tom. Been a while since I've joined your live. Glad you're still going. Hey, it's good to see you. Thank you, Ramsey. Appreciate it. Thanks for joining us. This is the Bank of America Tower. I always love to look at that building. This great architectural design. But look, at the end of the day, I get it, right? There's some things that, I mean, if you're dealing with, a $2.5, $3 million purchase, you got to make sure everything is super buttoned up, because for many people, this is a significant portion of their net worth that's going to be tied up into this, and you need to make sure you do extreme diligence, which I get. But, there are some silly things that could hold up deals. And I think for me, coming from a tech background, right, where the mantra is move fast and break things, that's the exact opposite in the real estate business, particularly in Manhattan. It's like literally the exact opposite. So I don't know. The LT Prod, yeah. I mean, Redfin was trying to do some of that iBuyer stuff. But again, a lot of the quote-unquote iBuyer business really backfired on a lot of these companies, particularly Zillow, because they were buying these houses, right, in all-cash deals, trying to do very, very little to no renovation with them, and just flipping it onto the public because they thought the housing market was going to go up forever. But they've taken significant losses on that portfolio, and they've actually done block sales of homes to institutions, right? And this was about a year ago, and I remember reading this article that said the iBuyer situation. Maybe we'll go this way. We'll check out the ball on top of One Times Square. But we were talking about iBuyers about a year ago, right? And how that sort of went south in a big way. And I was reading an article that said the death of, all of these iBuyer businesses are going to create a massive tidal wave of supply on the market, putting downward pressure on housing prices. And I was sort of laughing when I read the article, because I could tell the person who wrote the article doesn't really know how private equity works in the real estate business. Those homes, right, that Zillow and Redfin were severely underwater on, there's no chance in what that they would ever let a single family, husband, wife, and 2 kids ever get those homes. Not in a million years. What they do is they'll do a block transaction where they'll sell it to a big institution like Goldman Sachs, something like that. A major institution. They'll sell it for 70 cents on the dollar, 60 cents on the dollar, and the like. It never goes on the open market. It's not like Zillow is going to list 1,500 homes. It's just not going to happen. They sell it in a big bulk block transaction to institutional players that then go on to rent it to me and you. So that's sort of how that works. So very, very seldom in those type of situations, will it hit the open market for individual buyers? It'll be sold to REITs, right? It'll be sold to real estate investment trusts that specialize in single family, and then they'll use those as rentals. And they'll rent it to you and me, essentially. All right, if you look all the way up into Times Square, you can see that they're actually building the Times Square ball that's going to be dropped on New Year's, which is pretty cool to see. That's awesome. For some reason, it looks actually a little bit bigger than what it usually does look like, doesn't it? TK Porsche says, Tom, real estate attorneys are rarely involved in California residential closings. You know, I think that's the same in Florida. You don't necessarily have to have an attorney to close the transaction. You probably should, right? You probably should, particularly if you're a first-time home buyer, but you don't need to. It's a good point. Hey, Nako says, hey, Tom, thanks for the newsletter. Great work as always. There was an audio version, or did I miss it? Yes. So if you click the email that I sent, it'll take you to the Substack website. And from there, I believe you could click the play button and you could listen to the audio. But I think you need to download the Substack app. I'm not too sure, but yeah, there should be audio there, I think. Thank you so much for supporting the newsletter. I really appreciate it. Hey, Denise Gonzalez says, hello from Venezuela. This city is amazing. Hey, good to see you. Welcome to all of our Venezuelan viewers. Thanks so much. Everything in Miami is in Florida. The title company handles closing and an attorney should be present. Yeah, I think that's how that worked when I bought my property. Let me cross here. But I don't think it's required. Like in New York, I think it's required. All right, we'll wait till this cab goes, and then we should be okay to cross. This is the main Times Square subway station. You can get the NQRS, which is the shuttle to Grand Central, 1, 2, 3, and 7 trains. Now, supposedly the MTA has installed some sort of AI, like facial recognition scanner here. Let's see if we can see it. It's supposed to be here, because there's been so many people jumping the turnstile and stealing the fares. But I don't see it. And these are all the food delivery bicycles and the mopeds. There's like thousands of them here. It's crazy. So everybody, some breaking news, which we've talked about. This is 5 Times Square. This big building with the Roku sign on it that has the Red Lobster as the anchor tenant. This building is about 90% vacant. 5 Times Square. Crazy. Now, EY decided to join KPMG and move to the Hudson Yards because it'd be a little bit cleaner, a little bit better office space, and safer for the employees, which I definitely agree with. Down here's the Port Authority bus terminal. Let's continue to head down, actually. Very rarely do we ever walk down 7th Avenue. It actually looks to be a little bit clear tonight, so we'll go ahead and do it. Someone says, I really enjoy your live stream. How far do you typically walk? It depends. I'd say we do about 20 to 25,000 steps a day, but that also includes, walking around the city outside of the live stream too. This is Margaritaville. Rest in peace, Jimmy Buffett. That was such a travesty this year, guys. Jimmy Buffett passed away this year. It sucks. I always listen to Jimmy Buffett when I'm down in Miami. Great music. I know Bree Grams is like that guy with the cat. I noticed that too. I didn't really want to make eye contact with him because I didn't know if he was a crazy person. So I just kind of tried to avoid eye contact. Nakos says, Tom, I confirmed the audio on the newsletter available through the Substack app. No audio link in the email. I think that's because I may have recorded the audio before I sent out the letter, or after I sent out the letter. But yeah, I'm going to be playing around with it. I think that's a very good distribution model to get my thoughts out there. Number one, because I think it's very clear and concise information that the audience can digest. And not everybody has the opportunity to, sit through a 2-hour live stream. So I think I'm going to put a little bit more effort and more work into the newsletter. There'll be a lot more visual content, so a lot more video within the newsletter. And also, coming in 2024, which is about 2 months from now, we are going to feature every other week. We're going to have a featured hedge fund manager or a major iconic person in business, and we're going to do an interview. And that will also be in the newsletter only. There'll be a visual, so there'll be a little box to watch the video and the narration of the audio. So a quick 15-minute interview with like a hedge fund manager or a CEO of a publicly traded company. I think that would add a really nice sort of touch to the newsletter. I think that'd be good. Okay, we are almost there. We're coming up to 34th Street, but we're actually going to be coming up on the Penn Station side, as well as the new 2 Penn project. Whew, it smells really bad here though. Like really horrible. I'm not sure what's going on there. It smells like... Has anybody ever been on the subway when there was a guy that was smoking crack? And crack has that very, very harsh, like such a harsh smell. I don't know how people smoke it, but it's like such a disturbing smell. I got a big whiff of that with very raw garbage mixed in, and it was warm. So it was like a warm crack with garbage. It was really gross. Yeah, I still kind of smell it too. That's really bad. Maybe that's why there's not too many people walking down here. Okay, 36. But do you guys actually kind of get a sense that the city is a little bit quieter? I felt like last week the city was bustling. Maybe that's because the New York City Marathon was in town. I think we're going to have a little bit of a lull, and then things are going to really pick up next week. Because next week, obviously, we're going to have Thanksgiving. So I think you're going to have a huge uptick in tourism. Now you could already see some of the traffic backing up all the way to 35th Street. Maybe there's some major event going on at Madison Square Garden. Oh, that's true. NBA Elias. This is Tom. I wonder how many people from New York City are in San Francisco for the APEC UN people. Business leaders. I think you're right. This is a cool shot of the Empire State Building. It's all lit up in blue. But you're right. A little bit later this week, we're going to have a major conference in San Francisco, and that's why sort of the government rushed to clean up the streets of San Francisco, because we're going to have that really big conference. So maybe there's a lot of business leaders from New York City, spending the week in California. It's true. It's possible. Now, probably one of the most dystopian, crazy things I've ever seen in my life was the recent interview with Gavin Newsom. And Gavin Newsom comes out and he says, everybody is making a big controversy that the only reason why we cleaned up the streets of San Francisco is because we had this big event with all of these world leaders coming. And he's like, yes, that is true. That is the only reason why we cleaned it up. And I'm like, wait, what? It was just like, bro, if you have the means to clean up the city, but you allow San Francisco to just literally live in squalor, like that seems like a little bit dystopian. So we now know that the state of California has all of the resources and all of the means to keep the city clean and safe within 24 hours. They just deliberately choose not to do it because we don't have multi-billionaires and millionaires from across the world going to the city every day. Only 1 week out of the year. That was like the most crazy thing I've ever heard someone say. All right, these are some of the main windows here at Macy's. And I think it looks pretty good. What do you guys think of the facade of Macy's? I think they did a really good job. Yeah, NNB 45s is better than last year. I think I agree. Let's walk to the other side and see if any of those windows are up. I think they did a good job though. It looks beautiful. Kenny says Tom, San Francisco is trying to attract more convention business. Well, look, with things cleaned up, I'm sure it will, which is good. I mean, I'm not complaining. I just hope that it now stays safe and clean for the residents who live there. Wow, this is such a cool shot of the Empire. I wonder why it's all lit up in blue. I don't know if these are the full windows or maybe this is just temporary. I mean, it looks good, but I don't think this is the actual window. It says no peeking. Come see the magic November 16th. Ah, cool. So the temporary windows still look good. Wow. I think that looks great. Maybe they have a music theme this year. What do you guys think? This kind of reminds me of an advent calendar. Did anybody have those as a kid, the advent calendars? I remember getting them as a kid. Essentially every sort of number, right? You would punch it in and there would be like a chocolate inside. I don't even know if they have advent calendars anymore. I think that may have been like a 90s thing. Really, go for Hokies. These advent calendars have come back big time. DJ says I actually just picked one up. Oh, for the cats. They've made one for pets. Wow. Maybe I'll have to buy one this year. They always have this deer on top, though, every year. Okay, let's head over to, let's head over there. That actually looks interesting. Maybe they decorated the park for Christmas. We'll see. Now, I think the only other reminder that we need to give out real quick, obviously, is that Home Depot is going to be reporting earnings tomorrow. And we'll do a deep dive. We'll break it down. They report results after the bell, which I think is going to be important. So we're going to do a two-folded live stream tomorrow. We're going to spend the majority of the time talking about inflation, right? Because the CPI report is going to be dropping tomorrow from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. But then we're also going to be getting Home Depot's earnings report, which is always, I would say, one of the more anticipated earnings reports during earnings season, aside from big tech, right? Because a lot of analysts and investment professionals can use Home Depot's earnings to gauge a multitude of factors, right? Consumer spending on, household goods, home repairs, and even some major contractors and home builders, right, that have big contracts and have big spend with Home Depot. I very, very rarely see people using the ping pong, so it's kind of nice to see. Kenny says if people aren't selling their houses due to higher interest rates, shouldn't Home Depot and home improvements be good? I mean, it has been, generally. It generally has been. But it just depends on how resilient the consumer is, right? My fear is that you're starting to see these debt balances accrue and accumulate, and you're starting to see, consumer credit delinquencies go up a little bit or increase, right? That is sort of my only concern. So maybe the consumer's a little bit taxed, but if there's one thing that people spend a lot of money on, I would say two things. Number one, it's home repairs and like home remodel, and number two, it's their pets. So we'll see. I'm interested to see if it's going to come in strong. Hold on, let me just plug in my phone here. The audio is probably going to get just a teeny bit louder here. I just had to plug in my phone, but one of the other things that we're seeing as it relates to the housing market, you saw a really big pickup in new home sales, right? So that means people buying homes from a sponsor or a developer or a home builder, right? Like a Toll Brothers, like D.R. Horton, things like that. And the reason for that is because of your exact point, Kenny, right? Interest rates are extremely, extremely high, right, relative to where they were in 2021, when many people were getting a 3% 30-year fixed rate mortgage. So when you're buying a home from a big developer, right, that has a massive inventory and a massive portfolio of homes and a big balance sheet of cash, well, they are a little bit more flexible and malleable on the price. However, if you're buying a resale, right, from somebody who either has their house completely paid off or they have a very attractive interest rate and they're not super motivated to sell, those people that are reselling their house are going to be a lot more reluctant to negotiate with you on price. But home builders are incentivized to move product, and they have a lot of cash on the balance sheet. So guess what? They can do rate buy downs, right? They can more heavily negotiate and reduce prices, right? Particularly if you're an investor, right? Some people, if it's a big cul-de-sac, right, and there's about 12 houses for sale, some people will buy 2 or 3 houses in a bulk deal, get 15% off, live in one of the houses and rent out 2 of them. right? So when you're buying from a developer, they can do a little bit more to nudge the deal across the goal line. And this is exactly what we saw in the data last week when a lot of the major home builders reported. They said, look, we're able to get deals done and maintain relatively attractive gross margins by essentially just paying people's rates down. So, all right, this is going to be a really nice shot of the Empire State Building. But this is going to be one of the topics that we're going to be discussing in the next newsletter that I send out. So next Thursday, after the market closes, I'm going to be sending out our free financial newsletter to all Walks in Wall Street subscribers. So if you want to read that, we're going to do a deep dive into a lot of the home building stocks, do a deep analysis on their earnings report. So if you scan the QR code on your screen or type !news, NEWS in the chat, it'll drop the link to our Substack. So if you miss a live stream and you want to be caught up on the financial markets, we do a bi-weekly research piece that we send out to everybody, and you can listen to the audio version for free. So it's a good way to stay informed. But we're coming up on 2:10, and I think we will sort of wind down the stream over here, mainly because I got to get on the train, and this is a great place to get on here at 42nd Street. Hey, Frame Free, appreciate it. Thank you. Now to the right, this is going to be a huge development. I don't know exactly what they're building, but they demolished this hotel completely. All right, so if you guys enjoyed the live stream tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and feel free to share the show or the newsletter with your friends if you think you've gotten value out of it. We will see you right back here tomorrow. Hopefully we'll be live from Tribeca, and we will be breaking down the CPI report, line item by line item, and Home Depot's earnings report. There's always a bull market somewhere. You just need to know where to look, and I'll see you all tomorrow. So Sally, take care. Richard Vogel, Abdullah, Mike C., all of our good moderators, Teresa Diaz, Scott, thank you so much. Levi, Danny, appreciate it. UniJ23. I'll leave you guys off with a good view of the Empire. Austin City Limits. All right, everybody. We will see you all tomorrow. Take care.